Welcome back, history lovers. Today, we aren't just recounting dates, we are stepping into the moments of World War II that were so charged with emotion, fear, courage, and unimaginable sacrifice that they still send shivers down our collective spine. We begin in the terrifying spring of 1940 with the catastrophic fall of France. This wasn't a slow defeat, it was a stunning, dizzying collapse known as the Blitzkrieg, the Lightning War. Imagine the psychological shockwave that rippled across Europe as the seemingly invincible French defenses crumbled in mere weeks. Millions of refugees poured onto the roads, carrying whatever they could save, utterly convinced that their civilization was ending. The speed and brutality of the German advance, driven by armored divisions and coordinated air power, was a military paradigm shift that left Allied leaders frozen in disbelief. This moment of total psychological and strategic humiliation set the stage for the next 5 years of global conflict, instantly dissolving the fragile peace and proving that the horrors of the Great War had taught the world tragically little. The fall of Paris, a city of light plunged into sudden darkness, became the symbol of democracy's deepest despair.
From the depths of that defeat emerged a moment of miraculous, desperate improvisation: the evacuation of Dunkirk. By May 1940, over 300,000 Allied soldiers were trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, surrounded by the rapidly closing German armies. Their fate seemed sealed, leading Churchill himself to warn the British public to prepare for hard and heavy tidings. But then came Operation Dynamo, powered not just by military destroyers, but by an armada of hundreds of civilian little ships. Fishing trawlers, yachts, and pleasure craft sailed by ordinary citizens across the perilous English Channel. This wasn't a victory, it was an act of pure survival, a profound testament to the civilian population's refusal to surrender to fate. Imagine the scene: endless queues of exhausted men wading shoulder-deep into the oily water, dodging Stuka dive bombers, all hoping to squeeze onto a tiny boat crewed by a dentist or a grocer from Dover. This collective, spontaneous act of heroism saved the core of the British Army, preserving the fighting spirit needed to continue the war. It was the moment the myth of British resilience was forged under fire, a haunting image of salvation drawn from the jaws of annihilation. As 1940 turned into 1941, the war came home to Britain with terrifying consistency during the Blitz. Having failed to achieve air superiority during the Battle of Britain, Hitler turned his fury onto British cities, targeting civilian populations in a grim attempt to break their morale. For 57 consecutive nights, London was battered. Imagine the sound: the sirens wailing, the heavy thump of high-explosive bombs, the crackle of fires turning the night sky orange, and then the eerie silence as people huddled in underground stations converted into temporary shelters. Children slept clutching their gas masks, and families spent their evenings praying for dawn. But what truly haunts historians is the defiant spirit forged in that fire. Pictures show Londoners drinking tea amid the rubble, extinguishing fires with buckets, and rebuilding their lives even as the air raid sirens started again. This wasn't just survival. It was a powerful, stubborn declaration that terror bombing would not win. The moment a bombed-out housewife refused to leave her street, telling reporters, "We can take it," captures the sheer, unyielding human will that ultimately defeated the Blitz and demonstrated that civilian targets are not always the soft targets tyrants believe them to be. In June 1941, the scale of the conflict exploded with Operation Barbarossa, the massive German invasion of the Soviet Union. This shift in focus opened the Eastern Front, a conflict so vast, brutal, and deadly that its statistics still defy comprehension. Over 3 million Axis soldiers plunged into Soviet territory, aiming for the total annihilation of the Soviet state and its peoples. This wasn't conventional warfare. It was an ideological war of extermination waged across thousands of miles. The sheer speed of the initial advance was terrifying, but the Soviets, despite Stalin's purges and initial catastrophic losses, refused to break. What haunts us most about Barbarossa is the astronomical death toll. Millions of soldiers and civilians perished, freezing in the mud and snow, executed by Einsatzgruppen death squads, or starved in sieges like Leningrad. Every mile gained or lost cost thousands of lives.
This front became the meat grinder of WW2, a chilling landscape where human life was valued less than a bullet. The endless marching columns, the desperate scorched earth policy of the Soviets, and the unimaginable suffering inflicted by the winter underscore the fact that the vast majority of WW2 casualties, military and civilian, occurred here, a terrifying reminder of war pushed to its absolute, dehumanizing limit.
The sudden, devastating morning of December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. This was the moment the war truly went global, shattering the illusion of American isolation. Imagine the tranquil Sunday morning in Hawaii, the calm water of the harbor, and then the explosive, violent intrusion of Japanese aircraft, dropping torpedoes and bombs. The speed and clinical efficiency of the attack were shocking. In just 2 hours, the core of the U.S. Pacific Fleet was crippled, and thousands of lives were lost. What haunts the memory of Pearl Harbor is the profound sense of vulnerability it instilled in the American psyche. The attack was a calculated risk by the Japanese to buy time, but for Americans, it was a moment of national trauma, an ambush that instantly erased any political debate and united a nation in a furious resolve to fight. The iconic images of the USS Arizona sinking, her hull twisted and broken, trapping hundreds of sailors who remain entombed within her today, serve as a permanent, chilling memorial to the cost of unpreparedness and the terrifying effectiveness of sudden, total warfare. That morning definitively pulled the world into a conflict where there were no safe harbors left.
Moving back to the Eastern Front, we encounter the Battle of Stalingrad, arguably the single most brutal and decisive turning point of the war. Fought from August 1942 to February 1943, this battle was not about territory. It was about prestige and survival, devolving into merciless house-to-house combat in the ruined city. Stalingrad transformed the concept of warfare into something utterly dehumanizing. Soldiers fought in the ruins of factories, sewers, and apartment buildings, often just meters apart. Life expectancy for a Soviet soldier arriving at the front lines could be measured in hours. What remains chilling is the utter refusal of both sides to yield, fueled by Hitler's determination to capture the city bearing Stalin's name and Stalin's decree of not one step back. The soldiers were trapped in a frozen hell, fighting hand-to-hand amidst the corpses of their comrades and the debris of a pulverized metropolis. The eventual surrender of the German Sixth Army, surrounded and starved in the brutal Soviet winter, was the first major defeat suffered by Hitler, a psychological blow from which the Axis powers never truly recovered. Stalingrad is a haunting testament to human tenacity and the horror of urban warfare taken to its ultimate catastrophic extreme.
Amidst the darkness of occupied Europe, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising of 1943 stands as a heartbreaking moment of desperate courage. By the time of the uprising, the Jewish inhabitants of the Warsaw Ghetto, compacted into an impossibly small area and facing relentless starvation and deportation to death camps, knew their fate was sealed. They were not fighting for victory. They were fighting for dignity and to choose the manner of their own deaths. Armed with smuggled pistols, homemade bombs, and sheer desperation, a few hundred fighters resisted the heavily armed German SS and auxiliary forces for nearly a month. Imagine the sound of hope and defiance clashing against the systematic, relentless destruction ordered by the Germans, who eventually resorted to burning the ghetto block by block. This act of resistance, though tragically doomed, remains a searing indictment of the world's silence and a powerful symbol of the human spirit's refusal to be passively led to slaughter. It is a moment that haunts us because it reminds us that even when all hope is lost, the choice to fight for one's humanity, even against overwhelming evil, remains the ultimate act of defiance.
June 6, 1944, D-Day. Operation Overlord was the massive, complicated invasion of Normandy, the moment the Allies finally attempted to breach Hitler's fortress Europe. This day is haunting not just for the logistical complexity, but for the sheer immediate cost of liberation.
Imagine those first few waves of young American, British, and Canadian soldiers hitting the beaches, particularly Omaha, facing a murderous hail of machine gun fire, navigating obstacles and fighting in water stained red with blood. The courage displayed by those men, wading ashore under continuous bombardment, knowing that their chances of survival were slim, is overwhelming. This was the turning point in the West, but it came at a monumental price. Thousands of lives traded for a foothold on the European continent. The moment a soldier's boot first touched the sand of Omaha Beach, often just before they fell, encapsulates the terrifying sacrifice required to defeat Nazism. We are haunted by the voices of those survivors who recall the chaos, the noise, and the profound realization they were stepping into a guaranteed slaughter for the chance of freedom.
As the Allied armies pushed eastward, they uncovered the defining, most chilling horror of the war, the concentration and extermination camps. The liberation of camps like Auschwitz, Majdanek, and Buchenwald was a psychological moment that stunned the world and forever changed humanity's understanding of evil. Imagine the scene: exhausted, skeletal survivors emerging from the barracks, and the soldiers, hardened by years of combat, being reduced to tears or vomiting at the sight of the gas chambers, the crematoria, and the mountains of human hair and belongings. This was industrial-scale genocide, a systematic attempt to erase entire peoples based on ideology. The moment Allied camera crews filmed the emaciated bodies piled high, revealing the meticulous planning of the final solution, etched an indelible scar on the soul of the 20th century. It is a moment that haunts us not just because of the suffering endured, but because it proves the depth of depravity humanity is capable of reaching. The silent, starved eyes of the survivors looking into the camera became the ultimate, terrifying proof of the true enemy the world had fought to overcome. Across the globe in the Pacific, the island hopping campaign brought forth moments of fanatical, terrifying intensity, perhaps best symbolized by the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa in 1945. As U.S. forces closed in on the Japanese mainland, resistance became increasingly desperate and suicidal. Iwo Jima, a tiny volcanic island, resulted in some of the most concentrated fighting of the war, characterized by deeply entrenched Japanese defenders fighting from subterranean networks of tunnels and bunkers. The Marines had to root them out, yard by bloody yard. Okinawa was even worse, involving massive civilian casualties and the widespread use of kamikaze attacks, pilots choosing to crash their bomb-laden planes into U.S. ships. What haunts us here is the profound cultural difference in warfare. The Japanese doctrine of fighting to the last man meant that every victory was paid for with staggering American losses and nearly total annihilation for the Japanese defenders. The image of the American flag being raised on Mount Suribachi is iconic, but it is shadowed by the knowledge that the battle was far from over, and hundreds more men would fall before that desolate rock was secured, showcasing the horrifying cost of winning the war in the Pacific. The war's conclusion brought forth a moment of terrifying, epic-defining power: the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. The decision to deploy the world's first nuclear weapons remains one of history's most debated, yet utterly decisive acts. Imagine the sudden, blinding flash, followed by the silent, unimaginable force that leveled entire cities and instantly ushered in the nuclear age. Hiroshima's image, the single, towering mushroom cloud replacing a thriving city, is the ultimate symbol of destructive capability. What haunts us about this moment is the sheer scale of indiscriminate death and the realization that humanity had unlocked a force capable of self-annihilation. The testimonies of the Hibakusha, the survivors, describing the walking dead, the heat flash that left shadows etched permanently into stone, and the horrific long-term effects of radiation, ground this terrifying scientific achievement into a human tragedy. It ended the war, but it birthed a new era of global fear, a chilling moment where the price of peace was paid in the potential for total planetary destruction. As the guns finally fell silent in September 1945, the war was over, but the haunting moments were far from finished. The greatest lingering scar is the profound challenge of remembrance, reconciliation, and reconstruction. The world had to grapple with the millions of displaced persons, the devastated economies, the prosecution of war criminals at Nuremberg, and the impossible task of explaining the Holocaust to future generations. What ultimately haunts history is not just the brutality that occurred, but the quiet, agonizing trauma carried by every surviving soldier, every grieving civilian, and every displaced person. It is the realization that this vast conflict, fueled by hatred and ideology, revealed both the worst depths of human cruelty and the most incredible heights of human resilience. These moments of desperate courage, of horrific discovery, and of world-altering power remain powerful not just as historical lessons, but as eternal reminders of the price paid for freedom. We must ensure these scars are never forgotten, allowing them to serve as our perpetual guard against the forces of darkness. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates, and let us know in the comments which moment of World War II you find the most profoundly moving.